As we get closer to 2030, the first major milestone for global climate goals, industries are still faced with the challenge of reducing emissions into the environment, and that's why new solutions are being explored. Removing carbon from the atmosphere is a new approach to support the challenge of global carbon emissions. Technology solutions that reduce carbon emissions now are the most effective way to avoid future emissions, but they don't address emissions already released into the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide removal, or CDR technologies, are technologies that actively pull emissions out of the air and store them permanently underground. They're essential for tackling emissions that can't be eliminated through other means. But in order to work, there needs to be a viable economic incentive. That's where CDR credits come in. These are the credits that represent carbon emissions removed and can be traded because they hold economic value. For this to work, these CDR credits need to be permanent, verifiable, affordable, and scalable. Advancing these new technologies requires collaboration and strategic partnerships. Recognizing this need to continue advancing carbon capture and removal projects, ERA and Alberta Innovates brought together over 100 delegates at the inaugural BECCS Leadership Summit in Banff, Alberta. A prime example of this collaborative approach is CO280. Founded by a group of experienced climate tech entrepreneurs, CO280 partners with pulp and paper mills to capture biogenic carbon dioxide from the combustion of forest residuals to generate electricity and store these emissions deep underground, creating permanent CDR credits. This carbon capture method is called bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, or BECCS. We've discussed BECCS before on this show, but its use for CDR is pretty fascinating. We wanted to understand how BECCS can be used as a tool for creating carbon dioxide removals. So we sat down with Jonathan Rhone, Chief Executive Officer of CO280 at the BECCS Leadership Summit, to discuss what makes a good CDR project and how CO280 is building partnerships to tackle the hardest part of the journey to net zero. Here on Carbon Copy. John, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today here at the BECCS Leadership Summit in Banff. It's great to have you. Before I get into the questions, maybe I could just ask you to state your name, your title in the organization, and your company for our listeners.
Really happy to be here. My name is Jonathan Rhone, and I'm co-founder and CEO of CO280.
So, John, can you tell us a little bit about what CO280 does and your role in the organization?
Yeah, just probably worth a little bit of background about our company. CO280 was founded by a group of serial entrepreneurs that have been, myself included, that have been working in the whole area of financing, building, owning, operating climate tech, clean tech businesses for the last 25 years. And, we recognized about 3 years ago that there was going to be some pretty important changes coming in the carbon market. A lot of the investment that large companies are making in getting to net zero is to, reduce the amount of CO2 by making improvements in operations or investments in operations. But ultimately, you get to a point where you have to buy the last mile with carbon dioxide removal credits. And, as you look at the forecasts out in the market, start with the IPCC, it's forecast that we need something like 6 to 10 gigatons of carbon removals that need to be, and this is where we're actually removing CO2 from the atmosphere. We already have too much in the atmosphere. We're putting in more all the time. Companies that get to net zero are going to have to buy CDR credits. So we recognize there's going to be a real shift towards what's called permanent engineered solutions, which are carbon dioxide removal credits that are permanent. This is pulling CO2 out of the atmosphere, permanently locking it away in geologic storage. And when we looked at the market for how you could deliver CDRs and talk to customers who are buying them, they really want a number of things. They want affordability. They want CDR credits that are affordable, permanent, verifiable, so proven reductions, proven removals. And they want it at scale, and they want it soon. They want it by 2030. The initial companies are getting to net zero by 2030. So we recognized that there was an opportunity to create a project development company that would deliver what the market wanted. And we looked at all the different ways that we could deliver CDR at scale, permanent, affordable. And we ended up settling on the best approach was to use to capture biogenic CO2 from pulp and paper mills, leverage the existing industrial infrastructure that's already in place in the pulp and paper industry to capture that CO2, transport it to storage sites, and sequester it permanently. So that was really the kind of the genesis of CO280. Today we've got a phenomenal team based out of Vancouver, but people in the Gulf Coast and other parts of North America. We've got partnerships with many of the leading pulp and paper companies in North America to develop, finance, own, and operate these large-scale carbon removal projects. And we've also built a pipeline of billions of dollars of demand for CDR credits. So it's a pretty exciting business, but we really started it from the fundamental premise of how we can solve a market problem.
It's fantastic, John. Thanks for that background and a little bit of insight into, what's behind the genesis of CO280. Timing seems so important right now. Quite a nascent, emerging space, and that makes me think that this BECCS Leadership Summit really come at such a great time. What are you eager to learn about at this BECCS Summit? What makes it important for you to be here today?
Well, a couple of things. We are seeing that the advent of BECCS projects and the BECCS market is really opening up worldwide. There are BECCS projects that are being developed in Europe, in the U.S., South America, Asia are behind, Japan. And Canada, I think, can play a unique role, particularly Alberta. Where BECCS is going to happen first is going to be where you've got a combination of critical factors. Number one, you've got an existing forest products industry and bioenergy facilities, pulp and paper facilities. Number two, it's where we have those facilities are located adjacent to geologic storage. We've got to put the CO2 somewhere. And number three, we need a regulatory environment that is able to permit the storage facilities, permit the new BECCS facilities, and number three, we need locations that have a can-do attitude to getting stuff done and doing and solving tough problems and tough challenges. And so when we look around the world at where those conditions all come together, they are absolutely here in Alberta. They are in the Gulf Coast. It's a competition. There's a lot of value. Biogenic CO2 is valuable, and there's a lot of capital that can be invested. There's a lot of revenue that can be developed, and so we're kind of at the end of the summit. So I'm going to maybe reframe what have I learned. First of all, I've learned there's a lot of incredible people here in Alberta that really want to make this happen, and fundamentally, what we're doing in BECCS is we're creating a new industry. These are new industrial value chains that require an enormous amount of collaboration and cooperation. And, Canada's got a long history, and Alberta's got a long history of entrepreneurialism, of collaboration and partnership to create new value chains. And this one can have a huge impact on the climate. So I'm really excited to be here.
That's fantastic. And we're grateful that you took the time to come and join the conversation. I agree. It's been a great conversation over the last couple of days. We're into the sort of tail end of the summit, second day here. You spoke earlier on a panel today and offered some really valuable insights to a lot of the audience who are really trying to navigate their way here. It's new for a lot of people. We've deliberately brought together a lot of people from different sectors that are playing a role here. And I thought maybe we could try and tease out some of those insights that you were offering earlier. And so my question is, what's your strategy to approach BECCS projects? How does CO280 go about? What's important for you when you look at a project?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we're, we've done a lot of thinking about it, and I think that anytime you're introducing a new value chain onto an existing industry, it requires a lot of here's what we think and a lot of listening and refining of what that looks like. The way we've thought about it is, here in the pulp and paper industry. I mean, you think about the pulp and paper industry in North America. There's about 130 mills. In total, there's about 130 million tons of biogenic CO2 in North America. Canada's got about 30 million tons. And you think about monetizing, and the biogenic CO2 is currently, it's a byproduct of combustion, right? And the pulp and paper industry is totally unique from other industries because 70 to 80% of the energy that they use to run their mills comes from the combustion of biomass, black liquor, bark, other biomass byproducts of making paper, pulp, tissue, container board, all those Amazon boxes sitting in your garage. At least they're in my garage. So these are products that we use every day. And at the same time, you got all this biogenic CO2 that's just going up the stack. And it's already carbon neutral, so capturing it and sequestering it creates a negative emission, and that's extremely valuable. So when we think about approaching this industry, it's a pretty conservative industry. They're really good at what they do. They have complicated logistics. They have complicated supply chains. They have forests to manage. They have mills to manage. They have commodity industries to sell into. And we're coming to them saying, we can build a new capture plant and locate it on your mill to capture the biogenic CO2 that's going up the stack. We can concentrate it. We can put it in a pipeline, and we can transport it where it's going to be sequestered 3 miles underground. And then we can sell those carbon removal credits to pay for that project with an extraordinary return on investment and create a new revenue stream for the mill and a new EBITDA stream for the mill, new profits that are fixed long-term, under fixed long-term contracts that are quite different from the revenue that's currently generated from the mill. So we start with a conversation at the executive level about whether that's interesting for them to even explore. And generally it is. And so then we get into the how do you go about it? And so it takes quite a lot of patience and a lot of education as we kind of work through how to de-risk these projects at different stages. And we've learned a lot along the way, but what's stood up the test of time with our company has been the idea that these projects need to be financed off balance sheet as separate projects and as joint ventures. So we typically structure these as 50-50 joint ventures between our company and the pulp and paper company. We share the risk and we share the upside, and then we structure them to be financed so they don't impact the operation of the mill, and they don't impact the financial structure of the pulp and paper company. And then we put all the partnerships together required to actually make that happen. And they take 2+ years to develop from beginning to final investment decision, and then they take another 3 years to build until they're operating. So these are fairly significant time frame to make a commitment over.
Thanks, John. I appreciate you sharing a little bit of those strategic insights in terms of what's important when you're looking at these new projects, because like you say, it's a new opportunity, it's a kind of a new industry. And it makes me think, what I've heard a lot over the last couple of days is that, the bioenergy carbon capture storage opportunity, it's most promising with pulp and paper mills. And I wonder, is that due to, because obviously you've got to get feedstock to these, when we talk broadly about biogenic in any other kind of project, the real trick is moving the feedstocks to where you need them. Is that probably what makes pulp and paper mills the ideal opportunity?
It's a really good question. I think there's a number of things that make pulp and paper a really ideal start for where these BECCS projects need to go. Number one, as you've mentioned, these are existing facilities. They've been in operation for 30, 40, 50 years. The mills themselves have a long-standing, well-established fiber supply chain, and they manage their forests sustainably. I mean, the forest is the asset that makes the mill go, and so they've learned how to manage those forests sustainably. They do a great job of it, and so by going to a pulp and paper mill, we're not having to replicate any of that. The fiber supply chain is in place, the mill is in place. The recovery boiler, the power boiler, the boilers that produce the flue gas is in place. All we're doing is we're taking that flue gas before it goes up the stack into the atmosphere, and we're intercepting it. We're pulling it into a carbon capture plant, and we're concentrating it, and then we're compressing it and putting it in a pipeline. The other critical aspect of why pulp and paper is a great early adopter industry for this type of solution is because carbon capture plants they require steam in order to operate. They require electricity. We need to compress the CO2. That requires electricity. And they need water for cooling. And so all of the infrastructure required to build a capture plant and operate it is right there at the mill. And so that's the other aspect. And then finally, somebody has to operate and maintain the capture plant. And the pulp mills have chemical stripping technologies in other parts of their operation. So they're actually familiar with the basic principles of how a carbon capture amine system works. So the actual equipment and technology itself is not completely foreign to them. So we can leverage the existing employment base of the mill to expand it, to create a team that's going to operate and maintain the mill. And then I guess the last point is just that so many of the mills in North America are co-located with saline aquifer geologic storage, which is just another happy coincidence, whether it's in Alberta or it's Saskatchewan or in the Gulf Coast. So for those reasons, it's a great place to start.
Industrial scale carbon capture. North America's first hydrogen-powered locomotives. Using drones for reforestation. Since 2009, Emissions Reduction Alberta has been helping to deliver on the province's environmental and economic goals by investing in projects just like these. Projects that pilot, demonstrate, and deploy clean technologies across our industries. Whether it's detecting methane from space, producing biogas from Alberta's agriculture industry, or one of almost 300 other projects in our portfolio, ERA's investments in these game-changing technologies are reducing emissions, lowering costs, attracting investment, and creating jobs right here in Alberta. ERA's funding is sourced from the Government of Alberta through the Technology Innovation and Emissions Reduction, or TIER, Fund, which is Alberta's provincial industrial carbon price. For more information about Emissions Reduction Alberta, visit eralberta.ca.
Maybe my last question, I want to pick up on the point you made earlier about partnerships. That's something that's really come through quite strongly over the last couple of days of the summit.
100%.
You really need so many different partners involved. Could you maybe share with listeners, what are some of these partnerships, and thinking about what this value chain looks like, and who do you need to be partnering for this to be successful?
Yeah, we have a pretty foundational principle in our company that collaboration and partnerships are the cornerstone or the foundation of everything we do, and it requires a certain type of people in our team to be able to manage those partners and understand their motivations. And our philosophy is that as you put these partnerships together through this value chain, it's really important for us as developers to understand the motivations of different partners and what they want to achieve, and to try to ensure that there's alignment across the value chain of partners so that everybody gets what they need. Because if you lose one partner, the whole thing can fall apart. So here's kind of the list of partners. Number one is the pulp and paper partner. And they're actually the joint venture partner with us. We will be joint venture partners with them to finance, own, and operate the capture plant. So that's a really foundational. The capture plant's going to be located on site at their mill. Their leadership, their board, the operational team at the mill have to be all fully aligned on why we're doing this project with a company like CO280, and why it's important to the mill operation and to the company. So that's a fundamental partnership. Then you think about the other partners. Capture technology. So we have a terrific relationship with SLB Capturi, formerly Aker out of Norway. Fantastic leading supplier of liquid amine capture technology. We do work with other capture technologies as well. We're technology agnostic, but we having preferred partners is going to allow us to get to scale. And so the capture technology is really important. EPC partner, another critical partner. This is the partner that's going to take the technology, and they're going to build all of the balance of plant, all of the engineering equipment around the capture technology, and they're going to implement it on site. And that's really important for project finance, to see that the right kind of performance guarantees and schedule guarantees and timing and all that commercial stuff is rock solid and bankable. And the other critical partners are, we will get the CO2 compressed and to a pipeline grade, and we'll throw it over the fence, and then we'll have our other critical partner is going to be our transport and storage partner. So this is typically a derivative out of the oil and gas industry. There's a number of these companies are here, like Pembina and TC, companies like Bison and Wolf and Shell. They'll take the CO2 at the plant gate, and they'll build a pipeline, a CO2 pipeline, to an underground storage facility to sequester the CO2 permanently. That's a really critical offtake partner. And then the other two partners, number one are the customers, CDR buyers. These are the companies that are buying the carbon dioxide removals that result from this project under long-term fixed price contracts. That's the revenue stream that drives the economics and provides collateral for project finance. And then there's the project finance partners. These are the debt and equity partners that will actually finance hundreds of millions of dollars of capital. So you can imagine as you kind of think through all those partners, it's really important for us as the project developer to understand their motivations, their needs, and then we ultimately end up having, agreements and that distribute the risk across those various partners in an equitable, theoretically equitable manner, and that results in a value chain, a group of partners and contracts that can be financed and are bankable. So that's kind of a high-level summary.
John, that's fantastic. It sounds like there's lots to do and lots of different groups involved, and collaboration seems to be key. Thanks for taking the time to join us and share your insights. Is there anything else, maybe any last points you'd like to share with our listeners about BECCS, and if folks are interested to know more, what are some of the key takeaways?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I think that a couple of takeaways. Number one, you're spot on. This is a team sport. Collaboration is essential in order to create this new industry. Number two, I think that Canada has a role to play as a real leader. We have great entrepreneurs here. We've got fantastic emitters, and we've got all the ingredients here in Canada to make this happen. And I think that what is needed is to show the world that this can be done in a way that I think leverages a kind of a unique Canadian strength, which is collaboration and partnership. So let's get on with it.
Great way to wrap this up. Thanks, John. Thanks for being with us on the podcast. Thanks for coming to the BECCS Summit.
100%.
And we'll see you again soon.
Great. Thank you.